to thee, oft charioted by Bacchus and his pards, but on the viewless wings of poesy. Though the dull brain perplexes and retards, already breathe me, tender is the night. And haply the queen moon is on the throne, clustered around by all her starry face. But here there is no light, save from heaven is where the breeze is blown. Through verdurous glooms and blinding mossy ways,
And I Hello, everyone. I'm Wilson Sutherland, Assistant Professor of Opera and one of the music directors of this incredible project. I'm so excited to sit down and talk with Ben Moore, one of 6 composers who is part of Eastman Opera Theater's groundbreaking production titled Our Voices. Ben's works have been called brilliant and gorgeously lyrical by the New York Times, and Opera News has praised the easy tunefulness and romantic sweep of his songs. His songs and operas have been heard on the stages of the Metropolitan Opera, Seattle Opera, Houston Grand Opera, Palm Beach Opera, and the Glimmerglass Festival, among many others. Singers who have performed his work include a cast of vocal luminaries: Deborah Voigt, Susan Graham, Frederica von Stade, Larry Brownlee, Bobby White, Nathan Gunn, and Audra McDonald. Welcome, Ben.
It's great to be here. Hi, Wilson.
Hi there. Ben, let's dive right in. What or who has influenced your work as a composer?
Yeah, that's a great question. People ask me that sometimes, and I usually go back to my very early days when I tackle this one, and tell people that as a kid, instead of listening to the great pop hits of the day, I was blasting, believe it or not, the love duet from Tristan and Isolde, and I was wearing out that record player. And my parents probably were very annoyed by this. And I didn't really know until later that this was an unusual thing for a kid. But I was into hyper-romantic opera, not just Wagner, but Puccini and Verdi and what have you. And then later, I fell in love with Mozart. And then much later, I really fell in love with the songs of Samuel Barber. Mm-hmm. And concurrently, I was in love with the songs of Richard Rodgers. And I was trying, as a young guy, to understand how, with such simple chords, such simple melodies, how it could be so perfect and so captivating. So I'm sure that those composers that I loved so much as a kid are my influences today. Even though you might not see it directly, I'm sure that they've influenced me a lot.
Fantastic. So a panoply of musical influences across genres. And this might have bearing on my next question, which is what draws you to a particular story or poem?
And here's this. I'm going to be a little obtuse about this as well, because the real answer is I don't know. But what I do know is when I look back at the things that I've chosen, I can see why I gravitated towards certain things. One thing I've noticed is that almost all my dramatic pieces have protagonists who are quite complicated, quite flawed, who make terrible mistakes, and are working through the story to try to fix them. And if not fix them, they're barking up the wrong tree. And by the end, basically they're asking the audience, can we sympathize with this person? Is there a way to forgive them for their mistakes and a way to move on? And I think that the real heart of that these stories are asking the audience to look at themselves too. Can you face up to the mistakes you've made? And can you forgive yourself? That's the first step, of course, and move on. That's certainly true in my full-length opera, Enemies: A Love Story, which was a 10-year endeavor. So that would be my answer for that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what do you think inspires you to compose for singers, let's say, as opposed to instrumentalists, other instruments or groups of instruments?
Yeah, I love I love chamber music. I love instrumental music, pop music, what have you. But vocal music is just from my earliest memories. I was in church choir, in school choirs. Both my parents were singers, and singing. Our family sang together constantly. In fact, this is a true fact. We were called the Moore Family Singers at one stage, and our family, which were the 8 of us, went around and sang at events. And we put on Gilbert and Sullivan shows. It was a real thing. So it's just second nature to me, and that's that's the reason, of course.
Well, I hope you learned a box step and a grapevine and for all the
Right,
GNS.
yeah.
Move over Von Traps. Right.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that.
And what drew you to this project here at Eastman? I know you're a native of Western New York, right around the corner from here.
That's right. I was born in Syracuse, and I grew up outside Utica, New York, in Clinton, New York. the Eastman School of Music was always a very captivating place to me. I knew older kids who actually were lucky enough to get into Eastman, and I thought, wow, that would be something I could never imagine for myself. It's too lofty and too amazing. But seriously, Eastman was something that was very special in my mind. What drew me to this particular project? Well, I should say that I've had already been scheduled for a residency with the Eastman Voice
That's
Department,
right.
and that had been in the planning for a long time, long before the pandemic. And I had a virtual residency in September, which was amazing. And I think it was a few months before that, Steve Daigle. What's his title at Eastman now?
He's the head of the opera area.
He's head of the
and artistic director of the Eastman Opera Theater. So
Eastman Opera Theater, that's right. Well, he called me with this whole idea that in light of the pandemic, we can't have live performances. They were asking composers, vocal composers, to put together a program, and the program was going to be about a half an hour, and the pieces would be solo pieces, and that they should have some theme and some impact and some relevance. And well, it was just a no-brainer. I mean, I was sitting at home with very little to do. All my stuff had been canceled. I mean, I had events that I was looking forward to gone because of the pandemic. And I was loving working, just the beginnings of working with the students at the vocal department, in the vocal department. Super talented. I love working with young talent. And the whole idea just appealed to me right away.
fantastic. And how did you come to select these particular songs for this program? I know that you very carefully curated these.
Yeah, Steve mentioned this. He was hoping that they would have a through line and that it would be relevant to today. And the first thing popped into my head, because the protests were going on, Black Lives Matter, and all kinds of protests for racial justice and gender equality, what have you. That was the zeitgeist. That is still the zeitgeist. Could I find songs that address that issue? And my thought was, well, that's sort of a pipe dream. My work is so spread out. I've got musical theater pieces. It's really quite diverse. I'm not going to find a through line like that. But when I looked, I was really surprised. Right away, I saw a lot of songs I hadn't even thought of in that context that applied directly to that theme. So I really put it together really quickly and found that even though these songs were not written about racial justice, they were addressing those core elements. And I was lucky enough to find pieces from the operas I've written and from standalone songs that had a development from the darkest parts of our history, of world history, the Holocaust, I think, through more modern takes and from a very dark perspective to a much more optimistic perspective. So it was less difficult than I imagined.
Wonderful. And so many of your songs are written for specific living singers, right? So this was maybe an opportunity to look back at your compendium of songs and actually fit them into the zeitgeist of this moment, like you said.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
fantastic.
true.
And maybe you answered this a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about how the songs in this program connect to the world around us?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the list of them here, and as the audience has seen this montage already, and they probably remember that the emotional journey is one of darkness in the beginning, but then it's kind of stages of grief in a way. You remember the song "Lies" or the aria "Lies," which is a railing against the injustices. And in a state of despair, really. But anger certainly is something. Anger and defiance is certainly a very valid reaction to injustice. But then from there, there's this desire to escape in a piece like Away, Away from Ode to a Nightingale, just through our imagination to escape reality, for better or for worse. I Am in Need of Music speaks for itself. As musicians, we look for music to answer our soulful requirements, our needs, to answer the call, as does the song Lake Isle of Innisfree. And another song comes on. I'm really proud that this one is in the montage, because this is really one of the very first performances after the premiere, which was in London last year. This speaks to the Stonewall Rebellion, but the words that Mark Campbell wrote apply to this whole 2020 experience really, really well. And then the whole thing is bookmarked with Muta and Matika, which are two songs from my song cycle called So Free Am I, which addresses gender equality, but also expands to quite a universal perspective if you take that frame of mind.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Ben, your pieces have been performed all over the world in opera houses by our most kind of celebrated singers, but I actually met you on the campus of the Chautauqua Institution, and to me, it was Ben Moore, dog handler, because you were
right.
you had in your possession Snuggles, your dog, who was to make, and Snuggles was quite old at that point. Snuggles was making his operatic debut as the prima donna's dog in Ariadne.
That's right. Yeah, well, she was a prima donna herself. She's a girl, so she's a prima donna
Got it.
herself.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't check.
That's okay. That's okay. Oh, yeah, I'll never forget that. She made appearances in Ariadne.
That's right.
And the joke was that she had to do back-to-back performances, and that was really tough. Really tough on her.
Well, I hope her fee reflected that.
Yeah, I know.
Wonderful. Fantastic.
Yeah, how many years ago was that, Wilson?
Oh, Ben, that was in 2003.
2003.
So it's been a while.
Time has moved on.
Time
has been a while.
has moved on. Yes, exactly. Now, lastly, I just want to talk about what's coming up for you, or how have things changed a little bit with the...
Yeah, I know. I mentioned how so many things were canceled. In March, when the lockdown first happened, I was just, I think, 10 days away from a Chelsea Opera premiere of a piece called The House on Kronenstrasse, just part opera, part chamber music, and part theatrical play. It's what you call a multimedia piece. We're so proud of this piece. We're so proud of the people involved in it. And to have it just snatched away. But, we have hope that Chelsea Opera will come back and put this thing up. I mean, so many of the pieces were in place. And I want people to look for that. It's called The House on Kronenstrasse. Another piece that was to happen just a month after that lockdown was a premiere of a new version of a choral piece called The Wave Rises by Cantori New York. It was for full chorus, for harp, clarinet, and cello, and full chorus. About a 25-minute major choral piece. I think that will come. I'm pretty sure. I've talked to the conductor and director, and I think you can look for that in the spring. Then there were productions of Robin Hood and Odyssey, my youth operas, at Michigan Opera Theater and Opera Santa Barbara. I'm sure they'll come eventually. Will they be rescheduled? I'm probably missing other things, but those are some things I want people to look for coming up. But no one's scheduling right now because we don't know.
Of course.
We don't know when we can gather again. It's been such a difficult time.
Of course.
And my heart goes out. I mean, I don't want to sound like a sad sack, but my heart goes out to everybody who has lost gigs and is stuck at home.
Yes, countless numbers of our friends,
yes.
for sure. Ben, thank you so much for sitting down with me for a few minutes.
Pleasure, and thank you and everyone at Eastman for this fantastic opportunity. It's been such a joy.
Oh, great. I'm so glad.
Absolutely.
That's a mutual respect. Thank you so much, Ben. Good night.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.